Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends, wives, and especially your boyfriends and your husbands. A very warm welcome to the beginning of the week, beginning of another week here on Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome to Monday's edition of the DCU Daily. And today we're talking about the downfall of Hollywood. We're going to look at a Hollywood Reporter article in detail, looking at the disaster that has been the 2025 summer box office. For weeks now, they've been simping for their overlords, but of course now their overlords basically can't stop them, so they're going to talk the truth. This is what happens. They spin the narrative for weeks and weeks, Access Media, then finally the truth. Because this summer blockbuster season was supposed to save Hollywood. Superman, Jurassic World Rebirth, Fantastic Four. All these movies, F1, were all supposed to save Hollywood. Now, a lot of these movies made solid bank, not terrific bank, even Jurassic World Rebirth. I mean, Mission Impossible, the final movie, whatever it's fucking called, didn't really make enough either. People are no longer going to cinema because the films are just so anticlimactical. You get this build-up, you get the interviews, you get the press tours, and when you go and see the movie, it's shit or underwhelming. This is what's happened. They don't know how to entertain people. Let's make one thing absolutely clear. The downfall of Hollywood is absolutely self-inflicted. They have not modernized. They're doing the things they used to do at their inception in the 1920s. They still do test screenings. They still do everything they used to fucking do. It's still jobs for mates, sisters, brothers, sons, daughters, while the talented people who don't have the Hollywood DNA are being blocked. Now, while it was working, and the nepo system they had, the nepotism of promoting from father to son, daughter to mother, or whatever they were fucking doing, was working, because each generation was as talented as the last, as I keep on saying. We went from Kirk Douglas to Michael Douglas. That's fine. I've got no problem with that. We went from Donald Sutherland to Kiefer Sutherland. Fucking hell, I love Kiefer. Fucking brilliant. But now, it's not the same anymore. It simply doesn't work because the people running the system are not as talented as their forefathers and their foremothers. That's the problem. And of course, there's the other problem. The wokeness, the extremism, the hatred for straight white males. It's insane. Taking white roles, recasting them with people of colour, sometimes like The Equalizer, with a woman. Insane, right? I think, is it Matlock or Ironside? One of them. It's now starring Kathy Bates. Now, Kathy Bates is cool. It's a cool series, but you get what I'm saying. Imagine if I rebooted Beverly Hills Cop and I cast Axel Foley as a white man. What would happen? We know what would happen. Basically, the internet will fucking cancel me. So it's not okay for the other way round. So there's many reasons why the self-inflicted downfall of this industry has happened. It's not just politics, it's not just left and right, it's about creative bankruptcy and where their extremism has taken them. It's amazing to see. This will be analysed for years and years to come. What should happen to Hollywood? Someone should take a demolition ball, a demolition truck, and demolish it, because it is over, because it's an echo chamber, and the people running the system are simply not talented enough. They don't have the imagination to save this industry. They had an opportunity to make a generational Superman movie, and they rejected that opportunity. Instead, it was all about James Gunn's male feminism, again, hatred for straight white males, and he wanted, as I keep on saying, to pull the red trunks down by the white man's ankles and do him until he couldn't walk anymore, right? That's it. That's the fact. Forget about the other problems by bringing Cavill back, which was self-inflicted, then firing him again. Ridiculous, right? That was a studio decision. That wasn't a gun decision, by the way. But I'm sure he approved of that decision. These people are incompetent. David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, has no scripted entertainment experience. He's useless. He's a fucking calamity. He told us he wanted to make a generational Superman movie. He lied. That's not what we got. So, let's read this article. Summer box office clobbered by kryptonite. Domestic revenue barely matches last year. Now think about that. They were simping how Superman was breaking domestic box office records. If that's the case, what happened? The May to Labor Day season initially soared, but global grosses took a nosedive as foreign movie ticket sales plunged further, and the glut of male-skewing temples battled for scraps in the US. Now, this could be propaganda, right? It's saying you shouldn't be making films for the male audience, right? Bollocks. If you made great movies for us, we'd fucking watch them. No one's buying your propaganda because what they'll try and do is skew the narrative so no one blames them. We all know why Hollywood is failing. By Pamela McClintock. Whatever happened to the mantra survive until 25, the go-to refrain from theatre owners and Hollywood executives, trying to remain optimistic when the box office kept slumping last year. With revenue lagging well behind pre-pandemic levels. Now, Pammy makes a great point here, right? Because that's what they were saying. They were blaming COVID and the strikes. Next year will be different. We've got Marvel movies. We've got a DC movie. We've got a Jurassic World Rebirth movie. We've got the final Mission Impossible movie. What could go wrong? But what's very interesting here is how international audiences are turning their backs on New Hollywood. Because the kind of vibe around New Hollywood, the politics, the propaganda, isn't the vibe for international countries. They're very traditional around the world. And Hollywood are saying, fuck tradition, fuck Christianity. There's only one religion we're going to push at Hollywood, and I don't need to mention which one that is, right? Anyway, perhaps the mantra disappeared this summer when it became clear that not even the likes of Superman or even bigger and scarier dinosaurs could save the day. As the summer season wraps on September, the scenario made to Labor Day ticket sales in North America barely matched the 3.67 billion collected in 2024, even if the deficit was only 7 million only. Piling in on Universal and Amblin's release of Steven Spielberg's 50-year-old Jaws beat two new studios domestically over Labor Day. Now this is very important. Jaws, a film I mean look, it's a classic, I understand, but it's a plastic fucking shark. And it inspired shit films like Alligator, right? But this is American cinema, right? There's been a little bit of art, but shit like that. I mean, you've got to give Spielberg credit. He made a plastic shark look fucking scary. And it worked, and I understand the genius behind it. But what I'm trying to say is, a 50-year-old fucking movie finished second at the domestic box office. This is astounding. This is not shocking, because people will only come to cinemas now for re-releases. Because the modern shit isn't good enough. Because they don't have the talent or imagination. Or they just don't want to make good entertainment. They don't believe that entertaining us is the key to their industry's success. Which is how crazy they fucking are. All had assumed this year's summer lineup would have the strength to equal or surpass the far $409 billion grossed in summer 2023, but it isn't to be, leaving studio execs and exhibitors in a state of shock. Why are they shocked? Imagine how deluded they are that they're shocked about this, as they wrestle with how to operate in a new world order, where movie-going might never return to the pre-COVID levels. One studio that's still smiling is Warner Brothers. Of course they're going to simp for Warner Brothers. Actually, WB have actually done quite well, which has had a dazzling winning streak. But there's so much in debt that money's being sinked in a rabbit hole. Right? Every time they make money, it sinks to pay their debt, and they just have more and more debt. But at least they're improving. If they have another 5 years like this, they might be able to put their heads above the water. That's going to be very, very difficult. I'm very nervous for the future, says one top studio executive. There are all these studios and companies making movies. I don't think there is enough of an audience for them. That is not a sentiment theatre owners or many other studios share. They think the solution is more product delivered to their big screens. So let's think about that, right? There's not an audience for these movies. There's an audience for big blockbuster movies, but you're not making them with enough quality, dare, imagination. You're making the same old shit. Instead of creating new concepts, new stories, new characters, and making a different film every year instead of sequels and reboots, right? Make something new. I've written a couple of movies, I keep on saying it. Saving Judy Garland and its sequel, Saving Norma Jean. Saving Norma Jean is kind of spills over from my Saving Judy Garland movie, where my character has changed time by changing Judy Garland's destiny. So my character is sucked up again by a tornado, and he's in this kind of alternate reality where he ends up in an asylum and meets Norma Jean. She's not Marilyn Monroe, she's not a superstar. It's an interesting story. Make interesting fucking stories for the audience and then go to the cinema. But here's what they should be doing. For now, roll up the blockbusters, right? Stop making expensive movies. Make $100 million budgeted dollar movies, or just under, and make cheaper movies. Cheaper doesn't mean bad. Get good screenwriters, solid directors to deliver this, and you'll make solid profits for the next 5 years. Because we look at it, you look at Weapons, you look at the Michael B. Jordan movie, little movies that didn't cost that much to make, making solid profits. If they went down that avenue, they could rebuild again and bring back consumer confidence. But as this source says, the studios just want to keep on hitting people with the same old shit. The next Marvel movie, the next DC movie, the next Mission Impossible movie. It simply can't work. Make smaller movies, good, solid characters, good actors. That's what people want. But they don't listen to outside voices because they're an echo chamber. They're a closed bank and they're not listening to anyone. It's over. Demolish it and rebuild entertainment by people who actually care about it and love the art form but don't have their heads shoved up their fucking asses. Anyway. The season certainly started off with a bang, but grosses took a nosedive in the latter half as the life craft once provided by the foreign box office nearly deflated, and a glut of male-skewing temples battled for scraps in North America. Disney's live-action Lilo and Stitch and Paramount's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning fueled a record Memorial Day weekend. Lilo and Stitch Lilo took in $182 million during the 4-day holiday, on its way to becoming the only 2025 title so far to cross $1 billion at the global box office, and Disney are going to nail it again with the next Avatar movie. They'll make over $1 billion, maybe $2 billion again with that. At the global box office, Mission Impossible opened to a franchise best, $79 million domestically, which is still shit, for Paramount. The late May bloom resulted in domestic revenue being up 25% a year over year. But the downhill slide soon started. Since June the 13th, we've had just one up weekend, which was July the 11th to 13th, when Superman opened. Notes Comscore chief box office analyst Paul Debunking, or whatever his name is, and beginning of July 18th, the domestic box office has been down every weekend for 6 weekends in a row. The result, a year-over-year much-needed advantage has diminished to a mere 5%. David Croy's consulting and research firm Just Watch Media, which monitors trailer campaigns and movie-going habits, found that weeks ago only 25% of people said they prefer to wait to see a summer movie on streaming. A healthy sign in more recent days, however, that numbers shot up to more than 36%, he says. This hits mid-sized movies particularly hard as well, as being a major reason why the sheer number of people going to the cinema may never equal pre-COVID times. They keep on talking about COVID, right? But the lack of quality, the quality has diminished since after COVID as well. I mean, the quality was shit pre-COVID. It's about the quality, it's about what you put on the screen. But of course, they keep on mentioning COVID so they can blame COVID. I don't think the studio system will fill the gap that started from the pandemic, says the founder, again blaming the pandemic, and CEO of Just Watch. It's not as mass as a market anymore. It's about an even smaller group of people going to movies more often. So there's a lot more streaming and watching at home. But believe you me, people like me are opting out of streaming as well, because streaming is bad as well. If your movies you're releasing in cinemas are shit, and people are waiting to see, oh, well, I'll check it out on streaming, then you know what you're making is shit. So it's not an excuse to say that streaming's working and cinema isn't. Mission Impossible was among numerous tentpoles competing for male eyeballs, here we go, in the US before the pandemic. A studio could rely on the foreign box office to make up for any lost ground stateside. China alone could pony up 100 million to 200 million, if not more. In receipts these days, a Western title is considered a hit if it earns 50 million at the Chinese box office. But the international box office has dwindled. Maybe when you start blaming China for the pandemic, the country that was on its knees rubbing bleach on the pavement and doing things that any country should be doing, working as a country, maybe when you start insulting a fucking country, you dumb American right-wingers, maybe they're going to stop consuming your stuff, because basically they are a communist country and they all do this, they all pull together. So if you start insulting people and blaming them for a pandemic, what do you think is going to happen? Because let's be honest, we could sit here blaming England and America for so many wars and cruelty around the world. Let's not get it twisted. Anyway, take Tom Cruise's MI franchise, whose movies have always been popular in China. The summer final reckoning took in a stellar 65 million for a foreign cube of 406 million and 598 million globally. Yet this pales in comparison to the 181 million grossed by Mission Impossible Fallout in 2022. Well, it was a better movie. That film's foreign haul was 604 million for a worldwide total of 824 million. Jurassic World Rebirth also prospered in China, earning nearly 80 million. There is part of as its global total of 867 million. But there's nothing compared with the 261 million earned by Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, a shit movie, in the pre-pandemic era. The 2018 movie grossed 1.3 billion globally. Those movies did make good bank. Studios insiders say a raft of other markets in Asia have soared on US movies as soured on US movies, local content flourished. That includes South Korea and markets across Southeast Asia. So what they're saying is that more people are watching Asian cinema now than American cinema, which should always be the case, because Asian cinema has always been superior in terms of artistic integrity than American cinema, which is just, something you chomp. It's McDonald's, right? it's McDonald's compared to fucking Shakespeare, if you like. But anyway, Southeast Asia, one startling example, Hollywood titles used to make up to 50% of the box office revenue in Vietnam. Now it's just 14%. The downturn has hurt superhero picks in particular, explaining the lackluster offshore performance of Marvel's Fantastic Four First Steps and DC Studios' Superman. Don't forget, these sites were ignoring the shrinkage in international audiences, but now they're speaking the truth. It's interesting, isn't it? Is it a way to blame the international market? You can't blame the people. You can only blame the people making the fucking stuff. If I stop buying cheese because you've got fucking mould on your fucking cheese on the shelf every time I come to the supermarket, you can't blame me. You've got to blame the supermarket and the people the supermarket buy the stuff from, right? Anyway, in 2024, 6 of the top 10 highest grossing studio movies earned 60% or more of their total earnings from the foreign box office. This year so far, that number is 3 out of the top 10. That's a far cry from pre-pandemic, here we go again, 2019, when 8 of the top 10 studio films hit that threshold. Superman films have always been a tough proposition because of the comic book character's pro-American legacy. Now, this is classic excuses. Right? If you adjust Superman 78 for inflation, it made about $1 billion, right? Superman 78 made around $400 million in 1978, or around that. Fewer cinemas, fewer screens, no VHS, no home releases. Just what they could make when they were selling the film to television companies around the world, right? That's amazing. So why didn't Superman struggle across the world back in 1978 after fucking Vietnam? Just after Vietnam, where everyone would have hated America, right? Think about that. This is bullshit. Anyway, so where are we? So, pro-American legacy. But even Man of Steel earned nearly 57% of its 670 million global haul from the foreign box office. This summer's Superman, a mere 43%. Down from 57% to 43%. The harsh truth is that Man of Steel struggled in the US as much as Superman struggled internationally. But the international audience is shrinking for American movies. The overall downturn at the foreign box office, which extends beyond Asia in terms of the appetite for Hollywood picks, helps explain why Lilo and Stitch has been the only 2025 title so far to cross 1 billion worldwide. It's the first time since 2021, when the pandemic was still raging, that at least 2 films haven't reached this milestone. But this time, summer was over. Include Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine last summer. Lilo, thanks to being known IP and a family film, was able to play well across the globe. So why aren't other known IPs doing as well? It's not about being a known IP. The movie is clearly entertaining, and it's got no extremism within it, and that's why international audiences were okay with it. So, and family film was able to play well across the globe, and picks targeting parents and kids are doing record numbers in Latin America, such as Lilo or DreamWorks Animation Universal's The Bad Guys 2. Here's the thing. International audiences are not interested in alt-left extremism. They want traditionalism. That's what attracts normal, everyday families, traditionalism. And Hollywood talk too much shit. And as I say, the talent isn't there anymore. And it puts off international, traditional countries. It's as simple as that. Regardless of where summer revenue lands, there were plenty of highs and surprise hits, including Warner's Weapons and F1. F1, who spent so much money, they won't be making a big profit. The movie, the Formula One pick from Apple Original Films, that had already broken numerous records before pulling off the biggest surprise of the summer, is actually not a surprise. In passing up Superman, and the same conversation was made with World War Z, that was doing really well against Man of Steel. One of the reasons Man of Steel didn't do so well in the US was because of World War Z. While the overall numbers came in lower than expected, it would be unwise to conflate this less than expected outcome in terms of revenue with the quality of the movies. Imagine that! They're trying to say it's nothing to do with the quality of the movies. Imagine that! They think we're fucking stupid. The movies are shit. That's why people are not going. Yeah, the wokeness and the extremism, but they're not at the quality. And you're trying to twist the narrative. I was waiting for it. Anyway, says Debunking that however this guy Debunking, that however may be cold comfort to execs tasked with drawing up theatrical slates, it's because the movies are underwhelming and shit. This guy talking, this expert, is part of the studio system. They're all part of it. They don't talk to anyone. Hollywood Reporter, they're part of Hollywood. They're all part of the same fucking system. And if you don't get that, you haven't been paying attention. And that, my friends, is the end of the article. So what do you make of all of that? Please comment down below and let me know. But what do I make of that? Unlike the studios and the theatres, I'm not surprised. Because what happened to Hollywood was, it used to be this great, dynamic place, going back to the great dictator, a place with schools of excellence at every studios. Basically, they had a turnaround of talent. So you go from old creatives to new creatives. You would go from old actors to new actors. They don't have it anymore. All we're seeing is the same old directors, the same old actors, the same old actresses getting jobs. Jobs for mates. And no one at all is being let in from the outside. The genius in the way Hollywood used to be run in the 20th century has gone. And they are on their knees from their own making. But instead of opening their eyes, opening their front doors, and listening to people from the outside like you and me, they're shutting their ears and hoping for the best.